Kyle Hollins, founder and executive director of Lyrik's Institution. Named after his daughter, Kyle formed Lyrik's Institution in 2019 with the vision to empower at-risk young adults and reduce violence through culturally competent behavior modification and cognitive-based programs. By targeting destructive thinking errors and reworking them into productive behaviors, the institution's curriculum attacks the root cause of criminal thinking and thinking errors that can lead to destructive paths, such as drug use, violence, gang involvement, incarceration.
My belief is it's a systemic change.
Kyle not only teaches the behavior modification approach, but is a product of it. He is determined to share these methods so community members can learn from his personal journey.
I grew up in a 64130 area code. At the time, I didn't know that it was running a murder rate for the nation, right? So just growing up in this environment, I really didn't know that, I didn't know what type of violence I was in. You know, I grew up with my mom. My dad was in the picture, but he would come and get me like every other weekend type time. And growing up in the inner city came with different rules and different regulations than when I kind of moved and lived with him. So growing up in the inner city offered me this experience of like just seeing how people process through struggle, you know what I mean? Process through hard times, process through violence and stuff like that. I mean, when you're growing up, you don't know that you're watching somebody process through it. You just think this is how life is supposed to be. And that's what I did. I made that one reality, the reality for the world, and I kind of processed life through that as I grew up. I graduated from high school homeless. I was kicked out, probably my first time being kicked out the house was about 14 years old. Last time being kicked out, like really, really seriously kicked out, was probably like when I was 16. And I was full-fledged out in the streets. And that just offered me a different perspective, different view on survival. And what people really don't always realize is like a lot of the crime and the violence that kind of takes place in Kansas City is all based in survival. People are trying to figure out how to make it. And I say this all the time, like violence is the voice of the unrest. Like as long as there's struggles, as long as there's hardships and stuff like that at an all-time high, you'll see violence at an all-time high too. So I was sent to the state prison, St. Joe. I actually did get that 10 years, but there's no drug remand in Kansas City or in Missouri for some drug trafficking crimes because majority drug dealers are addicts and they're just kind of getting caught up in that and they're getting the same amount of time as the drug dealers. So they took the remand off and gave the discretion to the board. So they told me I could take this 4-month program that did cognitive behavior modification. And that was the first time that I got introduced to cognitive behavior modification and cognitive behavior therapy. So I decided to start Lyriks because I really understood sitting in those classrooms that there was something that was different for me than the other people that were in the classrooms, right? I think the principle of cognitive behavior modification is immaculate. You can't even copyright it. It's the philosophy is great, right? But how we deliver it should be what changed. And I realized that the people in the classroom that was around me, we're talking about hardened criminals. I was in there with the guy that robbed a bank with a Gatling gun. You know what I mean? Like these hardened criminals getting these really huge thought process shifts and changing their lives. But it took so much for them to get it. And what I realized was the criminal couldn't see himself in the curriculum. We specialize in the culture. And a lot of the young adults that we serve, because we serve 13 to 25, they're into the culture also. They're into the media. They're into the music. They're into the podcasts and stuff like that. Those are the vehicles of change. If we can change the thought process of those people that are behind the cameras, that are behind the podcast, if we can change those thought processes, they'll control the culture. They'll control the narrative of what's coming down the line. So we wanted to add a specific cultural creative arts component to Lyriks Institution because we believe like, one, we got to get them into the workforce, right? And if this is the vehicle in which they want to go through, let's teach them through that and they can become whatever they want to become. But we got to have those cultural pieces in this change. There is no change without those cultural pieces because otherwise, think about it like this, they're already controlling the negative aspect of it. Who's controlling the positive side of the media? You know what I mean? So we want to get ahead of that. We want to make sure that our young adults, our population, has access to high quality creative arts experiences, right? We're not talking about a ring light and a phone. We're talking about like equipment that shoots movies because if a writer is talking about social change from an emotional, a social and emotional intelligence. You know what I mean? Like, that's controlling the narrative of so much that goes on in Kansas City. So that's a heartbeat behind. That's one of the heartbeats behind Lyriks too.